All right. Hey, what's going on, everybody? What's going on? Once again, we are live. It's a little bit after 3 o'clock Central. Like, y'all notice the show says it starts at 3. I gotta do it on my time. Like my guy said, I did it my way. So that's how we do it. But on today, we are joined by an amazing couple, a power couple, that did something yesterday that has not been done yet. So I want to. How are y'all doing today? I'll introduce y'all in a second. But how y'all doing? How y'all feeling?
We are feeling great.
Pretty good right about now.
Yeah.
Must say
That's
so
good.
myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. That's good
Accomplished.
news.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I want to give the people a personal introduction of who y'all are. Um, I'm not gonna do the whole extreme personal that I did yesterday because that was a lot. But I'll say that this couple is one of those couples I actually look up to when it comes down to working together, to being together, to building together. They are the definition. Miss Shayla Reneé and
Mhm.
Mr. John Price the third. We call him JP3 for short. Um, so listen, yesterday y'all did like I said the impossible. Y'all did the amazing. Y'all worked together on a project. I haven't seen a husband and wife that have come together to um, rebuild their brand. So tell me a little bit about the project. Tell me a little bit about yourselves.
Mm.
You want that one first, or you want me to get right now?
You can go ahead and grab it.
Yeah, man. So again, John Price III. I get to um, share more than a last name with the lovely lady next to me, and so I was blessed to date, court, the lovely Miss Shayla Reneé some 10 plus years ago. And I mention that because on top of the achievement of reaching Amazon #1 best-selling status yesterday, we also this past week celebrated our 10-year wedding anniversary.
Yes.
Right, so that's
Yeah.
kind of a big deal. Shout out to God for making all that happen. Yeah. So full disclosure, we also have a 6-year-old that is, I can tell he's stirring from his nap right now. So we were hoping he was going to sleep through this whole thing, but Shayla might have to one of us might have to get up to tend to him. But just to give you a little bit more of that background again, when we first met, neither one of us had any aspirations whatsoever of being author, like published author, best-selling author, like none of that was on the horizon. But we both had, ministry background. I like to introduce myself as a brown skinned church boy from West Philly, right? Just kind of doing my thing. I've been a church drummer since I was 8 years old. I kind of grew up in one of those families where, mom was the choir director, grandmother was the organist. I was a church drummer, had 2 uncles and an aunt that both played the piano and sang. So, we did the thing where we went to church 8 days a week, you know what I'm saying? And so Shayla similarly, where church background, heavy ministry family, that whole deal. So that was always a part of the story and the backdrop. And so, but along with that came a lot of life, right? So Shayla and I both experienced a lot of life, and that I think was sort of a rallying cry for us in terms of our relationship. And so eventually that turned into a book, turned into more than one book, a workbook, and really a platform for Shayla. And she's going to come in and share a little bit more about herself and like how she's crafted her life mission around helping other women, but just kind of wanted to give at least some of that background information for the people. So yeah, did you want to share anything about yourself, your background, and how you led up to the book?
Yes. So I am John Price's the third. We have a John Price the fourth.
That's right.
Our son.
That's right.
I am his happy wife. Most of the times I'm his happy wife. But prior to marrying John, I was in a very toxic and abusive relationship, which pretty much birthed the book that we revised and just launched yesterday. He Almost Stole My Life. So yeah, I come from a background. I'm a church girl, but at heart, I was born and raised in the church, and always knew about God. Had no relationship with God. Didn't know my identity in Christ until after this relationship that I was in, this toxic and abusive relationship. And once I went through what I went through in the relationship, I had to write myself pretty much a journal. I had to journal for myself to, talk myself out of going back into this abusive relationship. So that birthed the book, He Almost Stole My Life. And it's basically about my 5-year almost descent into madness and back out of it again. And pretty much how God delivered me when I was living in the wilderness. And when I was living outside of his will, he delivered me from something or someone that was trying to pretty much steal my life away. And I wrote the book a few months, maybe a few weeks after I met John. Like I said, it was a journal, a journaling exercise for me. And I met John and we dated, and I did not know how he felt about me because John doesn't wear his heart on his sleeves. And I'm used to dating guys that pretty much will bend over backwards for me. So this was new. And I wasn't sure.
Yo, she keeping it real though. I heard that like snigger, but she's keeping it real though.
I wasn't sure if I should move forward in my relationship with John because it was very unknown, or if I should go back to a very toxic relationship that was cyclical and I was familiar with and I was comfortable with, even though I was drowning in it. So I wrote the book, I wrote the journal, and I, convinced myself, and God helped me as I wrote this to convince me to, continue forward, not to go back. And that was whether or not John and I were going to be together. So it wasn't really about the relationship of John and I. It was more about me saving my life from some toxic environment in a toxic relationship. So fast forward, probably 5 to 7 years after I wrote that journaling exercise, I had the opportunity to be around a bunch of a few younger females. Some of them were single moms, and a lot of them were in toxic situations, and they had problems setting boundaries and problems with, the types of guys they were dating. And they couldn't figure out why they were in these types of relationship. What were they putting off that attracted these types of men? And I was trying to help them out. This was before I was really coaching. This was just a lot of discussions I was having with these females. And I remember laying in the bed one day and God, giving me, it was pretty much an aha moment, like a way to help out these women. You already wrote something that can help these women out, basically. And that was the book. And so that birthed the book of He Almost Stole My Life.
Boom.
And then, years later, after we published that in 2018, we rewrote it last year and just published it today. And we included a workbook with it, which John helped out tremendously with, because he is very systematic and he can, take some things that I write and pull questions out of that.
Yeah.
And that was awesome. So that's how we work together
Yeah.
as a team to get this book and workbook out.
Right.
This time around.
Yeah. I knew where my lane was. I just got in my lane. That's all I did.
Nah, see, I'm gonna leave you alone on this on the live.
Because we didn't even tell them the story about how you and I connected, how we connected. Because
Oh man,
that's a piece.
the whole,
That's a piece of the story too. You know what I mean?
that's a piece of the story, but we want to focus on y'all for today,
For sure.
because
For sure.
I really want to highlight, as everybody heard, it goes back this for most, and we'll touch on the whole relationship piece, because for a man to actually celebrate his wife in the way that you do, and Shayla, for you to be able to share the information that you're sharing while having healed, I'll say that is a huge word, right? Because we know the phrase hurt people, but also there's the other side of it, which most people don't ever say, and that is healed people heal people.
Yeah.
And so you have taken the time to heal and put this book together, and walk us back through what you went through while still celebrating where you're at, right?
Yeah.
So there's two parts to this book, and I want people to understand. I don't want them to miss, because what they're catching now is the healed, the beautiful couple that's been together for 10 years, married, celebrated their anniversary on, I think it was Thursday or
Wednesday.
on Wednesday,
Yes.
celebrated their 10-year anniversary on Wednesday, and this was after healing, putting it all together, and then you came back and said, "Wait a minute." So it's a lot to there's a lot to digest and a lot to tackle in here. So, but before we do, we got to go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and then we'll be right back. And I want to let people know more about Shayla, more about JP3, John Price III, and this amazing family and this amazing power couple, so that they understand how they too can become healed. All right.
Man, working with Suge and his party or his team, that it's just been a great experience. I'm a former athlete, so I've dealt with teams my whole entire life. And when you have a team and you have a leader, you can't have anything but success. So Suge has been a phenomenal leader, and he's led all of these other authors to the promised land, or to winning, to the championship, whatever you want to, coin the phrase. He's helped all of us. He's led us to that number one status. And I know this book will probably be number one as well. And that's what a leader does. He leads everyone else to the promised land, to that ship. So Suge and his team has led all of us to number one. And, I look forward to continuing our relationship with, these books, and I'm bringing other people in because I know that's my guy.
Hey.
Hey.
And that goes back to, I love that testimonial, because he was actually the first Amazon bestseller that we launched.
Wow.
The first number one. And
Nice.
now we are, as of YouTube, we are at 339 Amazon number one best-selling authors.
That was
Congratulations.
good, man.
Yes.
Slow progress, but steady flow. I guess I get that from the turtle on your on your left. All right. So let's go back and unpack. Shayla, tell us a little bit about because this is part two.
Yes.
To He Almost Stole My Life. Tell us a little bit of what's included in this story. Like, what is the book about? What's the depth of the book?
Okay. So basically, the first book, the first He Almost Stole My Life, was a it was written for me, for the audience of one, me. And it was never intended to be something that was published and put out there worldwide. And although I think the first one is an awesome piece of work, it was, yeah, it wasn't meant for the world to see. So, the second one, the He Almost Stole My Life, the Take Back Your Life edition, is written. It still has my story in it, right? So it still pretty much has what the first book has in it. It still has the Let's Dig Deeper part. It still has two questions in it at the end of each questions for you, at the end of each chapter for you to ponder on. And what was added was 15 more years of wisdom, I would say. Mm-hmm. This is after the trauma. So I wrote the first one, and it was immediately after that relation. I would say like 8 months out. This is why it's so detailed, because I remembered everything that happened, and I felt everything, all the emotions and all the feelings that I felt in that relationship, all the sadness, all the hurt, all the despair. I felt all of that writing that first book, that first journaling exercise, and which makes it like really authentic. And now I'm able to look back and see how much I've grown from that journaling exercise to the wife and mother that I am now, and actually pull out parts of the story that can be directed towards anyone. It could be relationship, it could be, you're having issues with substance abuse, it could be, you're just struggling trying to figure out who God is, or what God means for you in your life. And the additional part is, it's much more scriptural references in that book. Mm-hmm. And it's much more biblical, and it's more of, okay, so we got our life back, right? So this is what it looks like you said earlier, after you've been healed. Because when we published the first book, we were maybe 5 years into marriage, right? Yeah. So a lot of the baggage that I had from that relationship that the book was about kind of trickled into our marriage a little bit, right? So I had to still overcome a bunch of stuff being married to this person that happened to me while I was in this marriage, and a lot of toxic stuff that was in me, because I'll never just put anything on someone else. I'll never just say like that person was toxic and I was perfect. Right. We were in a relationship. We were both toxic. He just had some other stuff with him. I wasn't physically abusive, but I could be verbally abusive while I was in that relationship. So looking back to that relationship now and thinking about how I responded to some things that happened, like I know that I won't respond to John the way I responded to the person I called Mr. in my book. Like, and that's just that little bit of growth, that's 15 more years of God working through me. And it's like 15 more years of like, okay, people see what they see now, but they don't know the work that went into us getting to, the 10 years here. And it's not just our marriage. You could look at me and see that I was a different person. So that's pretty much what the revised edition has, that the first edition doesn't. It's written more for other people to overcome as well. And it's more, if you look back, a lot of times people ask you like, what steps did you take to get out of XYZ? Mm-hmm. And when you're drowning in like a swamp, or you're in the quicksand, you're not thinking about the steps that you took, to get out. You're not thinking like, okay, so if I lift this hand up here to grab that twig, maybe I can pull myself out. So that's step one. And then I need to move my right foot to here, and then my left foot. Right. No, you just know I got to get out because I'm drowning and I need to survive. But when you look back 15 years later,
Come
you can
on.
say,
Come on.
this is
Mhm.
what I did. This was my step one. My step one was I needed to focus on God, right? What does that look like? I need to study more. I need to pray more. I need to meditate on his word. And I need to cut some other stuff out of my life, which just happened to be that relationship. And that's how this book is a little different. Well, it's majorly different than the first book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that this book is going to impact lives. There's something I don't think I heard you say it, but there was a key piece that caused that connection to the first dude, and it happened about a year in.
Mm, yeah,
Because there's some people that are holding on to some
yeah,
stuff because of connection that they
yeah,
don't realize. So
yeah,
can we touch on that?
yeah. So, like I said, I'm a Christian life coach, and one of the big ideas that I often push is you understanding your identity in Christ, what your true identity is. And I push that because a lot of that is not instilled into us from our youth, right? Like I said, I am a church girl at heart. I've been in church my entire life, and I've always known about God. I didn't have a relationship with God until after this relationship that I had to write a book about. And that's when I understood what I was created for, who I was created by, what that really meant, and what my true identity was, so that I could move forward in life and base all of my decisions off of me being a child of God. So I'm getting into this relationship with this guy with a lack of identity, a lack of self esteem, a lack of self worth. I was 23 years old. I meet this guy, and he has all the bells and whistles that he had, the nice car, he had a really good job, he had financial stability. And I honestly thought that he was too good for me. And so I'm in this relationship. I meet this guy who's like, 5 years my senior, which isn't a big deal because I used to date older guys anyway. So I'm in over my head in this relationship, and at the same time, upon meeting him, my mother was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. So I'm in this relationship with this guy. I meet this guy who I'm head over heels with. I have no identity. I don't know who I am. I don't know I'm a daughter of a king. So automatically, I identify as this person's girlfriend. So I identify as a role that I was playing in life. So in my mother was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. She's the strongest woman I ever met before in my life, right? So I'm not thinking it's a big deal. Even through all the chemo and the radiation, I'm watching her hair fall out. I'm watching her eventually, she couldn't work anymore. She eventually was, bedridden. And I'm thinking she's going to pull out of this. She's going to still survive. So I dedicate all my time instead of to her and caring for her and relishing in the little bit of time that I actually had left with her. Instead, I chose to be with this guy. So that meant me leaving her home some nights on her own. We lived together. We were the only two that lived together. And he had such a hold over me. And he was such a narcissist that is so controlling that if he didn't want to be by himself one night and he called me, he expected me to get up and drive to his house and be with him. It didn't matter that, whether my mom was well or sick. That didn't matter to him. All that mattered was that he wanted me where he wanted me at every,
Back and call.
yeah, every beck and call. So my life revolved around him. And if I had a role that I, should have identified as back then, it should have been daughter. That should have superseded my role as this person's girlfriend. But it didn't. And I lost some precious time with my mother. She eventually passed away. And I had to deal with that, all the guilt and the sadness and the pain that came from that. And choosing to continue forward in this relationship with this guy who didn't even come to my mom's funeral. So my identity was so caught up in his life. I so did not know who I was as a person, and or as a daughter, how a daughter should respond. And I'm not even going to talk about the time when I was in the hospital bed for 2 months in a day, where my mom was with me every single day. You know, I won't even go back to that. That happened a few years prior to
Yeah.
me, to this. Like, so it should have been, at least reciprocated that I'm going to go take care of my mom because at least she did this for me. And it wasn't. My mind was so warped and so wrapped around this person, and I was completely lost. And that's why the book is titled "He Almost Stole My Life," because I almost lost myself in this relationship. And it wasn't necessarily physical life. It was more my soul was lost in this relationship. And that was because I'll go back to it. Like, I lacked that identity. I lacked the fact that I am a child of God, and he wouldn't want you in that mess anyway. He didn't want me in the relationship to start off with. So yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's
that, and that's a lot to unpack. I mean, as I'm listening, a few things I hear. One, the identity was part of it. You didn't have that strong identity because of confidence or lack thereof during that time in your life.
mhm,
Two, and most important, and I say this is most important from experience, family. your
mhm,
your family actually needed you, but
mhm,
because somebody else put themselves above where where they needed to be, then you submerge yourself into them. And
mhm,
then three, um, you kind of talked about how he was it wasn't necessarily at points. I'm pretty sure there was that physical abuse, but there was a
mhm,
lot of that emotional and mental abuse,
mhm,
kind of playing you against yourself, against your
mhm.
better self,
Yep.
during this relationship. So what was it? What was the difference between that relationship and where you are now?
Hey, easy, easy.
I see. No, I see John with his arm around like, hey, you better stay. I'm just joking. I'm just
You
joking.
good?
They
Yeah.
You
they
good?
have the most beautiful relationship.
Uh, I would say the major difference is me. You
Mhm.
know, like, I'm a different person than I was while I was in that relationship.
Yeah.
So that is a major difference. But if we want to talk about how our relationship functions, like, I had to go into the relationship knowing that John was not the person that I was with before.
Come on
And
now.
I can talk from a female perspective. We often um, we can categorize men, you know, as all being the same, right? And then we add another layer to that. If you show any sign, or if anything shows up that might remind you of some person that you was with,
Mm.
your mind automatically goes back to, well, you're just like
Yeah.
XYZ. So when you get into a relationship, um, out of a when you get into a relationship, once you come out of a toxic relationship, you have to make sure that I won't say you're completely healed, right? Because we don't know we're completely healed until we're off and moving on, and things like that. But you have to at least be somewhat healed to the point where not everything that transpires in this relationship reminds you
Right.
of
Becomes a
the
trigger. Hmm.
past. So not everything is a trigger
Hmm.
in the relationship. And but as far as John is a completely different. I mean, I mentioned it at the beginning. Like, John is not nothing like the person that I, had to write a book about. If I had to write a book about John, it would be completely different. It probably would be so short that it wouldn't even be worth. It would be a short essay. Because
Come
it's
on
not.
now, you can't do my brother like that.
No, I'm not saying. I'm not saying it. That's a bad thing. I'm saying I don't have enough negativity to pull out of John to write an entire book about it, to warn other women about this type of person, right? So John is like,
he's a kind.
let me write it with you then. It'll be
He's supposed to be my dog. He's supposed to be my dog.
It'll be the Ninja Turtle story.
That is funny. Yeah, but
the systems
straight from the sewers.
Yeah.
No, the systems that impacted me forever.
There you go. That's the subtitle right there.
Well, I will say, like, before I met John, I had a list, right? I had a list of what I wanted in a guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he had to, he had to be this complexion. He had to be, a certain, height. He had to be a certain weight. He had to live in a certain area. He had to have a certain type of job. It was pretty extensive, right? Yes. Somewhere on there, have a relationship with God was, I won't say it was at the top. It was somewhere on there. Like, he needed to have some sort of relationship with God that we can have a conversation, right? And then he would also not compromise my views in my walk with God. And I was meeting guys, in between, after my relationship and before meeting John. Like, I was meeting guys, and I'm going off this whole list that I got. And, it's like strikeout after strikeout. It's like the Phillies game last night. Like, you got one more pitch and you're going to be out of here. Mm-hmm. And I had to, like, re-look at that list and take everything off and just say relationship with God, right? So the one main characteristic that I wanted in a person that I was going to date was relationship with God. And even when I erased everything else and that was the top thing, I was still meeting people who said they had a relationship with God, but they wanted to live a compromised life, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm, and I get it. Like, we're, late 20s, early 30s, and there's certain standards and stuff that could be a little, tweaked a little bit because we're older and you that's old school religion type stuff. And I thought my standards were a little too high. And then I met John, right? And he's like serious about his walk with Christ. Like, it's not only what he's saying, it's like his actions, right? So he's like, when we were dating, he showed me his apartment from the outside. We rode by it. Like, he's like, that's where I live and let's go somewhere else. So, it's just little things like that where you won't even put yourself in a compromising position that you might cross a boundary, was like eye-opening to me while dating him. And also, it was a challenge. It wasn't, he wasn't throwing money at me, and I'm not, we got married and he had way more than I had saved. I kind of used up the money on my bad credit, student loan and stuff. But he wasn't like, let's go out. It was different. He wasn't, here's a fancy restaurant we're going to go out to. Here's, let's go to the movie. Like, dating him was different. It was, let's go to the park and get to know each other, right? And really understand. Yes. And then really, like, we had the whole talk about if we were going to be exclusive, because sometimes I would find myself in a relationship that I didn't know I was in. So we, actually had a talk. It was like, okay, we're not going to date other people. We're going to be exclusive, right? Mm-hmm. And then we had a whole nother talk about us calling ourselves girlfriend and boyfriend. Yeah. So it was, a whole different dating. It was just different dating. It was different. Yeah, it was a whole different approach. And it was refreshing and it was scary at the same time, because like I said, I wasn't sure what he was thinking a lot of times. So I would have to question, I would question myself, like, is he, I'll tell you, the first time we had a real date, when we first met up, he texted me after the date. It's part of the reason why I had to write this journal. He texted me after the date and says, I texted him saying I had a great time or whatever, and he's like, "Yes, sis, let's run that back another day."
Yeah, I said it.
So, yes, yeah.
He says,
So he said, now he laughed like he doesn't really remember. I don't know if you remember
Barely,
doing that,
yeah.
but that really questioned like where I stood in his life to make me write an entire book about why I'm not going to go back to something that's familiar yet toxic, you know, versus, you know, try to stay the path and maybe this might work out with this new person who, you know, has a relationship with God and I'm attracted to. You know, God kind of gave me a little break from there because I was even going back to like, God, he don't even have to be attractive, just like have a relationship with God.
you had the whole that movie Fighting Temptations where they were like have to be fully a believer.
Yeah.
Don't have to be a full believer. Just have to be able to do music. Then it's like, listen, if you can just do music, we'll get you saved later.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically.
I understand completely. So I say salute on how the relationship started because y'all are now 10 years in and there's so much. But before we go to our next commercial, I wanna touch on a few things. One, you mentioned that list, and I've heard about this listing. I've even had a list and was like, I'm not settling. I waited 44 years. Sometimes that list can be deceived, right?
Yes.
The relationship with God. There's a lot of good church folk out there that know all the right words to say and know all the things that well in John 3:16.
Yeah.
And Philippians 4:13. Okay,
Yeah.
but what do you know about God? What's your vertical relationship like? So you say after you completely wiped it out, that's when you were able to find this amazing man to your left.
Yeah. And just
John,
a
don't be giving
caveat.
yourself a pat on the back, man, because they say he who finds a wife finds a good thing. So don't
Proverbs 18:22, bro.
Yeah, he can also quote scriptures.
I'm living it.
Yeah, JP3 over there, like.
Well,
I'm messing with y'all.
I do want to add also to that is that I had to be comfortable with being by myself. I had to be comfortable with the idea that I may never ever, find someone and I may never ever get married. Yeah. And it wasn't until I had that, I had that freedom was I able to like fully date someone like John. Like if I had a lot of mess, John and I wouldn't have worked out. Like if I brought a lot of that stuff with me, just the type of person John was when we first met, like it wouldn't have got very far. Like so I mean
I can imagine he had his list going too.
Oh yeah, he'll tell you about what he expected and what he got and how I ripped his list up, I guess.
Yeah.
If you have time.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to make it a relationship thing, but go ahead, Sugar. What were you about to say?
Nah, we're gonna come back and unpack more of this and really just tap into where y'all are now and working together as a power couple, because that one to me is a huge one. But I'm gonna play an oldie but goodie. John might recognize this one. Take a quick commercial. We'll be right back.
Everybody has a story, and so do you. We know that you've been through life, been through heartaches, been through pain, been through depression. You've thought about writing your book for years, wanting to help change lives because of the things that you've overcome. We don't know what your story is, but we can help you turn your story.
Hey, something about that commercial don't wanna go all the way through. But
Oh,
in the meantime, I got another one for you, and then we'll be back shortly. We'll be
Mm.
back shortly.
okay.
Woo!
BOBM publishing has been amazing. Me personally, going through the process in different parts, being a contributor to a book, also taking the lead on a book, BOBM has really broken it down for ways that someone like me can understand. I don't consider myself a professional writer. I don't consider myself an author in that realm. But what they really did, one, they gave me the confidence to let me know that I am able to do this, but then also walk me through the entire process. They were there with me step by step along the way, just preparing me, answering questions, laying down the foundation and the path that we really needed to be successful in publishing a book. And so to me, it's really personal, and to have that personal connection to
Y'all get the point. Listen, technical difficulties hit us all, and I think that's one of those things of being on technology. You got to learn to adjust, especially as an
Mhm.
entrepreneur. But I will give a quick shout out. So I know y'all have seen me kind of taking swigs of the water. This is actually, and I'll put it up closer so you can actually see. Um, I call him my mentor. Saul Paul has his own brand of water, Change Water. A portion of the proceeds actually goes to the Saul Paul Foundation. Um, so make sure, if you are a organization that's looking to bring in entertainment and also looking to sponsor certain events, reach out as saulpaul.com. So that is just a quick shout out, and like I said, Saul Paul Change Water for the win. So, with that being said, we are back. Listen, y'all, we're back, we're black, and we are back. I'm just having fun today
Yeah.
because I'm enjoying the energy that y'all have together. And one thing that I know is that, you know, I hear a lot of the stories that are out here now.
Mhm.
The horror stories. Man, I was dating this guy and he appeared this way and he just wasn't this way. Or
Mhm.
on the male side, these women, some of them got some things that need to be healed that
Mhm.
they can't see because
Mhm.
of we all have our blinders on, right?
Mhm.
And so one of the biggest things is that you two found each other, you two found love, but not only did you find love, y'all found a way to mix that love and the things that you all do together. So
Mhm.
what most people don't know is that you all are both ministers, both coaches, both speakers, and y'all are both building phenomenal brands together.
Yeah.
So how is it working with your working with your rib and with your Boaz, as we always say? How is that?
I did a lot of talking.
All right, so I'll jump on this one, right? So I shared this yesterday at our launch. A little piece about like the dating and courting process and like how that went for me again. Systems guy, like
Mhm.
thinking things through. Everything has to line up. The equate the numbers you put in on this side of the equal sign has to equal the number on the other side, right? All that stuff. And so this is how our dating and courting process. And this is going to answer the question about how we're able to work together today, and how I was able to be so have such synergy. So how we dated again. Shayla was I'm from Philadelphia, City Slicker, right? So from the middle of West Philly, and Shayla is from a city Coatesville, roughly about an hour away. So in the early days, we had in order for us to see each other, we could only see each other pretty much like once a week, and that was because of the distance, and two, Shayla's car was down. So
Mhm.
if she wasn't hopping on a train to come see me,
Mhm.
for the most part, it was me hopping in my car, going up the highway, right, for just about an hour, and then riding back. So every time through that process, like I was like, because she wasn't my type, I would have a lot of time to pray on the way back home. And I'm sitting here like, God, is there like I want to be done. Like, she's not what I, whatever. But then like the next week it was like, all right, let's just do it one more time, see what happens. Just go ahead one more time. I will go the next time. And it would be like, wow, this was like this refreshing, like she has this, whatever. And God was just doing something. It was obviously something different about this woman that was so magnetizing and compelling. And it was a combination of her grace, her story, the things that she had overcome, which you've heard about, some that she shared on the call. And so every week I'm going back and it's the same thing, bro. It's like, no way that she didn't give me she couldn't give me a legitimate qualifying or something to disqualify her. Mm-hmm. And so that just led to, I was like, all right, at some point you're gonna have to seal this deal. So here's what going through that process did. Here's what it did for me was it made me learn and realize you accept the person for who the person is. Mm-hmm. You accept the whole thing, right? Because why? Because I paid full price. I didn't have the advantage that most other people have when more than likely you date someone who's probably in your same town. They might live 15 minutes from you. You can see them, multiple times a week, yada, yada, yada. I paid full sticker price. I had to hop on the road. I wasn't trying to jump in her pants. Like it was all of that. And so I got a chance to actually learn who she was, learn who I was. Sorry, this is our little man. This is the one who's 6 going on 30. Probably more of a minister than the both of us put together. But here's the rest of the story, and I guess I'll continue to tell the G version of it instead of the PG-13 I was setting up for. But anyway, and so that built a sense of sturdiness and a muscle in me that I realized, like, oh yeah, we have so many things in common that are the things that actually matter. And so it was like, yeah, our values are aligned. So even though we both brought baggage to this relationship, we at least on the foundation and the fundamentals about who God is and how much Christ means to us and all that stuff was like, that was all right, hand in glove. So we got something to build with. So then from there, we got like tested before we even started writing the book thing, because there was a period of time for about 2-ish years when we were at Maranatha at Academy Kids.
When we worked together.
So our son at a particular time, his nursery, when he was like a year old, maybe less than that. We worked at that school on staff at the same time. We had senior administrative responsibility at that school. And so like, that was we gotta see if this thing is really going to work. And so that really pushed us in a lot of ways, tested us in a lot of ways. So it gave us the foundation that writing the book, I felt like that was almost like throwing. Like if you can get through all the other stuff, and get really chiseled and get all that straight, this was easy.
Yeah, I concur. Working together was practice. Working together outside of our businesses was very good practice. Yep. For us to be able to work together on our personal brands and writing books together. Yeah. So, but the writing process, though, we kind of go do our own thing, and then we come together and we kind of iron out some of the stuff. So it's not like we're on top of each other while we're writing. And but I don't want you to think that it's like easy to work with your spouse. It's not something that is is like you're going to have like rainbows and whatever the saying is every single day. There's days where I don't want to work. I don't want to get up and work, and John's more systematic, like you and you know how John is. And there's days where I just want to relax. So having someone to be able to say like, all right, now we need to do XYZ, right now, it takes a lot. It's humbling, I guess, to be like, okay, let's go and do some work. In the old me, the 15 plus years prior me probably would buck up against that, because like, you're not going to tell me what to do on my day off. basically. Just like, you're not going to tell me how to spend my money that I work hard making. So,
Mhm.
it takes a lot of compromise, and we know each other pretty well right now. So, and people change. They say, every 7 years you become a different person.
Mhm.
So we're 3 years into like the new who we are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The tiny piece I'll add is kind of like the analogy, the way what you just described remind me of the way I've heard some people who describe the relationship between Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, that toward the end of their lives, like the expression is that they moved closer to one another. So the militant piece, like Malcolm was kind of, as he was nearing his end, he was actually starting to, based on the influence of Martin. And Martin was like, well, wait a minute, instead of this whole like, laying down and letting people run roughshod over us, maybe there needs to be some aspect, some element of militance. So I'm saying that to say that a lot of that has happened for us because we've got 10 years of, real life, working through stuff in. So I found myself when it comes to like, all right, now everything don't have to have a system and a doggone structure. Like don't smother the love out of the equation, right? Like I'm learning that. And so I'm moving closer too. So I don't get quite as nervous. Like Shayla will be like, hey, let's go spend like something impulsive. I'm like, oh, it hit me in a shock in my system. But then after a minute, it's like, all right, you only live this life once, right? We're gonna have another afterlife. We only live this life once. Enjoy.
Yeah, and I think also with it's all the compromise comes with knowing each other. So it's like when we first met, John wanted to have family meetings. It was just us two, and I'm like, family, it's us two. We can just have a conversation, right? Because I'm more, whenever it comes to my mind, I want to talk about it. And John's more like, I got to prepare for this conversation I'm about to have with you. So let's schedule a time to talk about it. That drove me absolutely insane in the beginning of our marriage. And just like the Martin Luther King and Malcolm X analogy, we've come to a point where I can bring up a conversation with John while I'm in the kitchen that I already started in my head, and it doesn't completely throw him off all the time. And then I can also schedule a meeting with John and set it on our calendar and know, like, at this time we have to have a meeting. So, that's just things you learn, and things that you have, like some of yourself that you have to compromise in any relationship in order to make it work. But more so in a marriage, relation. And then, raising a child, that's another layer there.
Yeah, no, and I can appreciate what both of y'all are saying, because something I've learned, like not from personal experience, but from watching from the outside in. Me being that JP4 and my parents sitting where y'all are for 48 years now, and just watching how they've some of their old ways have gone away, and they've accepted each other for who they are, and just like learn to live in the moment. And I think that's something that's missing in these days and times, because we live in that microwave world where it's like it has to be like this, it has to be like this, and there's a whole woman's empowerment, and man is the king of the house. So when you put those two together, you always get this. And so seeing how y'all have actually merged into women's empowerment, and I'm the king of the house, but we are a family, and that becomes a unit, and hence JP4, and the love that you all share as a couple. So I say salute and congratulations on doing this together.
Thank you.
So let's talk about next steps. Y'all have written this. Shayla started the process. Rip wrote He Almost Stole My Life. Came back years later, and we talking about 10 years later. And the reason I bring that up is because most people, when they write a book, they write the book, and then the book just sits on the shelf, right? And it's because of where that book was written from. If it was written from a place of truth and really wanting to help someone, then you come back and you want to make adjustments and you want to improve it. it doesn't have to be perfect off the bat, which is, you know, the mistake that I see a lot of authors that even the ones that I work with. This has to be right. This has to be right. This has to be right. And then that same energy that they exerted to get it perfect, when it's time to sell, they're like, and when it's time to go out and impact lives with this masterpiece that they've written, again, it's and so what y'all said was, wait a minute, this really is impacting lives, and I'm in the field. I do work with women who have been in abusive situations. I do work with men who are trying to become better fathers. We do work with couples, and this can truly impact their lives for the better. Let's go back and make some adjustments so that we can rebrand it and build it out to help and impact even more lives, right? So what was this process like for you all? Walk me through the rebuild, the rebrand.
I guess I'll start. I'll tell you that I'm proud of this version of this book, and I can go back and tell you all the thoughts that I had from the first version, because like I said, it was a journaling exercise that we decided to publish, and I didn't put much thought. Like, when we published this, we had not yet met you. I think we were we just met you. So we published it on our own, you know, kind of out there by ourselves and trying to figure this thing out on our own. And I can tell you from my own point of view that I wasn't as confident with the first version as I am with this version. So I didn't push the first version. Like you said, a lot of authors go into like trying to make a perfect product and then they don't push it. I didn't push the first version just because I felt I would, like I said, wasn't as confident in it. And I'm going to reference someone. John is going to be annoyed, but she's like my favorite singer, Brandy. So I watched an interview.
You guys still sitting up in your room, JP3?
No, he's not.
You don't want to be down, JP3?
He's not a fan.
You can't get with the full moon? Almost doesn't count? I mean, John, never say never though. Come on.
I mean, it's not Whitney. It's not, you know.
You don't understand everything she does to put into her music. But anyhow,
I'll be there.
I watched an interview. I watched an interview of hers where she talked about one of her albums versus the latest one that was out. And the interviewer asked her why she felt the other album didn't do as well as she thought it could do. And she said that she didn't believe in it. And so because she didn't believe in the album, it didn't sell as well. So that's how I related to that, because that's how I felt about it. It didn't matter how many people came to me and said how much the book impacted their lives, or, you know, how they really loved, you know, that I was so transparent and that, you know, they read it and, like, you know, they stayed up all night to read the book. And, you know, they're so, like, I've run into people where I didn't know had the book, and they're like looking at me with like stars in their eyes, and I'm like uncomfortable, right? Because I'm like, okay, I don't even know what to say to you, but thank you, because I didn't believe in the product. And that was part of the reason why I had to go back. It was necessary for me to go back and rewrite the book and revise it so I could believe in it myself, and therefore I can push it to other, and I can go and you know, different organizations and sell. Like, we have like 400 copies sitting here, 350 of them already sold, right? I just have to sign them and get them out the door.
Wait. Flip that back. Say that again for the people in the back.
We have like 400 copies sitting here, you know, in boxes. 350 of those copies are sold. That's not even counting the individual sales that I got to go back through my sales report from the week to get out. And it's because, and I'm excited about that, right? And I'm excited to, like, you know, put it in the hands of people nationally and internationally, because I believe that it will change lives, which is a different, it starts with the way you believe and how you believe about what you put out there and who you are as a person. This is the reason why we had to rebrand,
Yeah.
is because, if you don't believe in yourself, ain't no one else is going to believe in you.
Come on.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where that comes from.
Yeah. I'll throw in this two other pieces to that, just to build on. That's the foundation right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the foundation. To build on that, two things. One is Darren Hardy, success guru, editor, chief editor of Success Magazine, etc. Jim Rohn's understudy. He talks about this concept of the compound effect, like how things, seeds that you plant early on, don't seem like much, and then in the early days you're only seeing a little leaflet come out the ground or whatever, but over the time you keep doing something consistently, the compound effect is that like you will be experiencing some like massive growth when the time of harvest is coming. And so for us, I think this has been a matter of us eating our own dog food when it comes to this whole identity thing. Like if that's just like a term that you throw out there that like, oh yeah, you got to know who you are, da 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 da. Like, okay, right? You're probably not really ready for life for real yet.
Yeah.
But if you live, eat, breathe, sleep, breathe that stuff for every day for 10 years, like Jesus is your life. You understand who he is. You're walking with him. You're trying to do it to the best that you possibly can. Follow, obey his word, walk with him, all those things, right? What happens is then the compound effect of that over the course of time is like, oh, I understand who I am. I know who he is. I know he is my father. I am his child. And I'm sort of walking out, and that changes who you are on the inside. So what I'm saying is, at the point in which Shayla wrote the first book, there wasn't enough time in for the confidence level about who she was to catch up. It was still like in its like infancy. But by the time you got to this one, which was like 4 or 5 years past that, now it's had time for that compounding to take effect. So I'm just saying that all that for my aspiring authors and people who are in that mix right now. Like, yo, stay the course. Like, eat the dog. Like the principles that work, the biblical principles that work. Like, stay with it. Stay with it, and you'll eventually get where you need to go. That's thing number one. Thing number two is this. Coaching is everything. Coaching is everything. Yeah. I don't know if y'all know. You heard her say we were trying to piece things together. And don't get me wrong, Sugar Ray was actually helpful kind of on the back end of what we were already doing for the first one. Yeah. So, I'm great. I mean, I'm enormously grateful. Sugar Ray, again, we joke back and forth. That's brothers talking to brothers. That's exactly what this is. But when you add, okay, got the foundation, who we are, all that solid compound effect, and then you're like, you know what? I'm not really an expert in this field, but there's this thing called BOBM Publishing. I've seen what they've done for the past 300 other authors that were sort of in my shoes. Maybe there's something to that whole thing that I need to go ahead and invest in the coaching that's going to take me to, the level I need to be at. So I think for us, it was like growing to the point that we recognized the value of good coach, like somebody who has the skill set, the expertise to like position you where you need to go. Because if this is your baby and this is your dream, then like, yo, you need to just go ahead and be about it. That's why I talked about, and I won't say I learned that expression from you, but I remember hearing that expression from you. I forget what we were doing, Shug, and I think you were trying to, it might have been the first book Shayla had on her website, and we didn't put the full price on there. So you were trying to support us, and you bought it for like, I'm making up a number. You bought it for like $4 less than it should have been. And you were like, yo, y'all messed up. Y'all just lost out on $4. Like, I believe in paying full price. Right. That was my mantra when it came to dating. Like, I was like, yo, I'm going to pay full price. I'm not going to the store for a Happy Meal. I'm going for a wife. I'm going to drive an hour back and forth to go get what I need to get each and every week. I'm willing to abstain. I'm willing to work. I'm willing, like all that stuff, because I know what I'm after. So you got to be willing to pay that full price up to and including, yo, sign up for what you doing? Sign up for the BOBM. What's going on?
Come on, listen. And I appreciate the shout out. I am I'm actually gonna say it this way. Like I remember the first book, and I it was a pleasure working with y'all on the second. Mostly a pleasure. Like when I talked to Shayla, it was a pleasure. When I was working with JP3, man, there's a thing called a turtle and there's a thing called a gorilla. If you don't know what either one of those two are, please go take a personality test. Go see which one you are. I'm a super gorilla. I don't have emotion. I don't have feelings. It's like, let's get it done. Let's execute. Then you got the systems person, and JP3 is the systems person. So that combination, and then Shayla has that heart piece of this is her heart work, and it all, it all came together. So it was definitely a process. But I'm going to talk about paying full price, because for most people that are watching this, they're like, you know what? That looks like an amazing book. I'm gonna go to Amazon and go grab a copy of her book, because and I say it this way: you got your little Prime membership, and I say it little on purpose. You got your little Prime membership. You want to get the deal. You want to get that free shipping. You want to get it in a couple of days or whatnot. But here is what I'm going to say: go to visit Shayla's site, and I got it scrolling across the timeline now. HTTPS colon or whatever the dots // Shayla Reneé square site / and you can get your autographed copy. These two people are not. They are a power couple. They're not going to go away. They have been ministering for years. They have been coaching for years. They have been working with people for years. This is their heart work. So go to that website, grab your copies, and I always say, don't just grab one, grab two, one to read and one to share, right?
Yes.
And that way, this is how we get the message out there, because you may know somebody that works with people that are in abusive situations, that work in domestic violence counseling, that work in shelters, that work in women's homes, that work in churches. This message needs to be heard, because most people have talked about how they went through it. Love that. I don't love that you went through it, but I love that you wrote about how you went through it. But she wrote about how she went through it and then came back and said, wait a minute, but I'm healed too. Right? You can be out of a situation for years and still not healed. She's healed, and she wrote this book specifically to help those women, help those men, specifically more so women than men. But I always speak on behalf of the men that have been in those abusive situations, and and we don't get abused physically. Most of us don't. I'm 6'7", so I can't.
1 out of 7.
One out of 7.
1 out of 7.
Yeah, 1 out of 7. I've been in one of those situations where a woman likes to throw hands, and I'm like, hey, stop. But most of the time, it's more so working up here.
Yeah.
I'm saying all this to say, make sure that y'all go to her site specifically, and I say this on each and every live when I'm working with the author. Go and visit their website directly and purchase it directly from them, because no author wants to sit there for 2 to 4 months waiting on Amazon to send a check that should have been there immediately. That way they can get that book shipped directly to your home address, with a nice signature that says, thank you, we love you, we appreciate you, keep soaring, keep elevating, keep healing.
Amen.
That's my take on the thing. And then also what JP3 said, if you haven't signed up yet and you need to get your book out, please stop calling me after y'all done went with somebody who. Anyway, let's talk. I'm being silly right now because I'm with family, as y'all can tell. I'm actually with family, and this is such an enjoyable moment to see that. Not only did Shayla become a #1 bestseller, she actually became a 2-time #1 Amazon bestseller yesterday. And then JP3 became a #1 bestseller by helping his wife. So part of the process, they are now Amazon #1 best-selling authors.
Yes.
And that's what this is all about. This is all about taking your gifts and opening those doors and making room. Um,
Mhm.
so that's what I have to say about that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And trusting the process, just to jump on what John was saying about BOBM. Um, I know that I did not want to do the virtual launch. I just wanted the book edited and published so I can get it out. And um, Sugar Ray's like, no, you gotta. This is how we make authors successful. You gotta, trust the process, and it works. I am, an example of that working.
Mhm.
And this is me thinking that, all my glass is half empty thoughts about doing a virtual book launch. And
Mhm.
so,
Mhm.
it does work and it does make sense. It saves you time and energy to go with someone who is an expert in their field. And then we can focus on
Right. What we do.
what we
Right.
do,
Right.
So,
Yeah,
yes.
man. No doubt.
Absolutely. And I like that half full glass, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I say there's more people in the room. There's the person who sees it as half empty. There's the
Mm-hmm.
person who sees it as half full. There's the person like me who's gonna come along and say, "Hey, I don't care which one it is. I'm about to take a drink." And then
Yes.
there's that other person that's like, "I don't care about that. It should have been in crystal instead of glass." You can't please them either way it goes. So just keep y'all keep soaring, keep elevating. Let's
Yeah.
what do y'all want to lead the audience with? How do they connect with y'all?
The easiest way to find me, I would say all my handles are at Shayla Inspires.
Mhm.
So I'm found at Facebook that way, Instagram, and my webpage is ShaylaInspires.com.
Mhm.
So everything is pretty streamlined. Connect with me. We can do coaching. We can just chat, you know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, if you think a church or organization that may benefit from the book, let me know and connect us with them, and we can talk to them
Mhm.
and
You
help.
got a full suite of speaking and coaching services, including True Identity Women's Empowerment Program, where we also doing Take Back Your Life
Yes.
Women's Empowerment Program. So a 12-week
You say,
experience where they can get what's that?
did you
What's
say
that
Take
face?
Back Your Life Women's
Take
Conference?
take back your. Come on, man. Come on, man.
Mhm.
Did I just
Come
hear
on,
that?
man. Take what that say right there. What that say? Take back your life. Women's empowerment seminar. So again, 12-week experience where we walking through
Mhm.
again the principles from the book and literally helping to put tools in women's hands to like walk them
Mhm.
through and out of their circumstance. So then on my front, just talking to all the again churches and organizations, but as well as the men, all my men out there. If you're trying to grow personally, spiritually in terms of your leadership and character development, come get with me. We would love for you to be a part of Men on a Mission.
Mhm.
As a community of kingdom minded men that I happen to coach and lead. And so we get together for hashtag Manhood Mondays every single Monday for a Zoom call. So if you want to learn more about that and connect with me, my handles are JP3 Inspires. So that's both Facebook and LinkedIn. JP3 Inspires, letter J, letter P, number 3 Inspires. And we out connect you with that, and that's really legit. Just about building up kingdom men. So our mission statement is to exert kingdom influence on families, organizations, communities in the world by empowering men with life transforming wisdom. So come get your life changed. We'll make this thing happen. We'll keep building it up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, listen. This has been a fun, amazing, powerful edition of Book Talk Live. Until next time, listen. We love y'all to the moon and beyond. Ain't nothing y'all can do about it. Love y'all.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank
It's a blessing.
you.
Shalom.
Yes.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys.